In the heart of the mightiest empire the world had ever known, beneath the gleaming marble of temples and the roar of the Colosseum, lay a world of darkness. A place where the light of Roman justice dimmed and the shadows of power grew long. This is the story of the Roman prison, not merely a building of stone and iron, but a terrifying instrument of control, a limbo between accusation and final judgment. Forget everything you think you know about modern prisons. The Romans didn't have a system of long-term incarceration as a primary punishment. To be sent to a Roman prison, the carcer was to be cast into a pit of despair, a holding pen where your fate was sealed long before the door slammed shut. It was a place designed to break the spirit, a brutal waiting room for trial, exile, or the final walk to the executioner. Imagine being dragged from your home, your world collapsing as rough hands bind your wrists. You're a Roman citizen, perhaps accused of debt, treason, or simply angering someone with more influence than you. The law, the famed Roman law, suddenly feels distant, an abstract concept that offers no protection here. You're shoved through the streets, past the indifferent eyes of the crowd, towards a foreboding structure, often tucked away beneath a public building, a dark secret hidden in plain sight. The most infamous of these was the Mamertine prison, or Carcer Tullianum, burrowed into the rock of the Capitoline Hill in Rome itself. It wasn't built to house, but to contain. Its upper chamber, the carcer, was a grim, dark room. But below it lay something far worse. The Tullianum, a foul, subterranean dungeon, a stone pit accessible only through a hole in the floor. Here, prisoners were lowered into near-total darkness. A cold, damp tomb where the stench of filth and death was overwhelming. There were no cells in the modern sense. You would be thrown into a crowded, chaotic space with dozens of others. Desperate debtors, captured enemy chieftains, political dissidents, and common criminals, all crammed together. The air thick with fear and disease. The only sounds, the clanking of chains, the groans of the sick, and the distant, muffled sounds of the vibrant city above. A cruel reminder of the world you've lost. The guards, often soldiers weary of provincial campaigns, were your absolute masters. They were not wardens. They were keepers. Their job was simple: prevent escapes and maintain a brutal order. Food and water were not guaranteed rights, but privileges, often scarce and of the foulest quality. A crust of hard bread, a ladle of brackish water. Anything more you'd have to buy. And that was the twisted economy of the Roman prison. If you had money or friends and family on the outside willing to pay, your suffering could be eased. Bribes could buy you better food, a blanket against the cold stone floor, perhaps even a message smuggled to the outside. For the poor and the forgotten, there was nothing. They were left to starve, to succumb to the filth. Their only hope, a swift verdict, whatever it might be. The psychological torment was as punishing as the physical hardship. Days blurred into nights. Time lost all meaning in the gloom. The uncertainty was a constant torture. Would you be brought to trial? Would you be forgotten and left to rot? Every footstep on the stone floor above, every shout of a guard could signal your doom. This wasn't about rehabilitation. It was about demonstrating the absolute power of the state. It was a place to be broken. The prison was a stage for the rituals of power. High-profile enemies of the state, like the Gallic leader Vercingetorix, were held in these pits for years, only to be paraded through the streets in a general triumphal procession before being publicly strangled in the Tullianum. Their final moments were a spectacle, a warning to all who would dare defy the might of Rome. Their degradation was a key part of the victory celebration. Even for Roman citizens, the experience was terrifying. The Apostle Paul, according to tradition, was held in such a prison. His letters speak of being in chains, of suffering, yet his faith gave him a resilience that others lacked. For most, there was no such solace. There was only the gnawing fear, the slow erosion of hope, and the desperate struggle for survival in a man-made hell. The architecture itself was a weapon. Low ceilings, thick stone walls, no windows. The design was meant to intimidate, to crush the human spirit with the sheer weight of the rock surrounding you. It was a physical manifestation of the state's power, an inescapable reality that reminded you of your utter helplessness. Light, when it came, was a fleeting luxury, a thin shaft cutting through a grate, illuminating dust motes and the despair on the faces of your fellow prisoners. When the time for your judgment finally came, you weren't led to a pristine courtroom. You were hauled, filthy and weakened, before a magistrate, often in a public basilica. The verdict was swift. For many, it was execution, by the sword, by crucifixion, or by being thrown to the beasts in the arena for the entertainment of the masses. For others, it meant exile, stripped of your citizenship, and cast out of the Roman world. Or worse, condemnation to the mines, a death sentence served through hard labor. The Roman prison was a dark mirror reflecting the empire's reliance on fear and dominance. While Rome projected an image of law, order, and civilization, these subterranean dungeons revealed the brutal reality that underpinned its authority. They were the final, desperate stop for those who fell through the cracks of Roman society, a place where justice was absent and power was absolute. A chilling reminder that even in the brightest empires, the deepest shadows can be found right beneath your feet. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into Rome's hidden world fascinating, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories from the ancient world.